do any good and costs a lot of money, it's probably not worth it. The importance of the right journal and getting the right people in your lab at the right time. Challenges of being a scientist and clinician scientist, parent, scientist, and other things, you know, because you have people are sort of points in their life, usually have kids, anything else of interest to you. So we started talking about an hour and a half, and I set up the next one, and the next, I asked him, what do you want to talk about? Grants, that was the thing. So, but you know, the source, the study section, all these things make a big difference.
We could go on for days of that.
Well, it's important because you go to the wrong study section, you're dead.
So Mark, you're volunteering to do all 6 of this?
I don't care. It was, you know, if it helps people.
And I'll circulate these. So the first one is a webinar, so you sign up for it. I guess it's free, right?
The Dave Warshaw one?
Yeah.
Which one?
No, I just took
The branding one.
I took
The
his
branding is
PowerPoint.
actually, I just sent that out to the CVRI to tweet it. So that's actually going to be free next week.
Can you send me
I can send you the link.
the actual thing? Because the Margaret Vizard sent me something, but the little logo thing
Didn't come through? So I'll send that
you know,
to
in
you.
the forwarding. It kind of goes.
Yeah,
Right.
I sent,
And I can send it out to everybody.
but I had a variety of people. I had one person in Spain.
Yeah.
I had physiologists. I had biophysicists. And I told them, I haven't done it yet, that I'm going to try to one after another get them up for a seminar, because I realize a lot of people get their first job and they stop getting invitations. And just sort of lose that. You started getting to hone their skills and giving talks, and now
Yeah.
they're not.
It's really important. Now, this topic, I got invited to do one of these for NIH, and the way I started mine was, it's the best of times and the worst of times. Collaborations can either be the greatest thing that ever happened to you as a scientist. It can also be the worst. I suspect you're going to tell us both about this. But in today's world and going forward with team science, this is critical. So thank you. You have 20 minutes. You're going to talk uninterrupted, and then we'll have a free-for-all after that.
Okay, good. I wanted to know what the format was. So
I
if
just told you.
it's uninterrupted, I
Yep.
have you as a captive audience, which is great. I've given this before as a part of a course that we give here, which is How to Succeed in Science. I think it was. You used to give
Oh,
that
it's the
course.
survival
The
skills.
survival skills, but that
What's that basically?
right. And so I gave that there in that course, and then Charlie invited me to give this down in Washington for one of the idea groups. And you know, it's interesting. Anytime I've presented it in an interactive manner. So now that I'm going to do it 20 minutes flat out, it's going to be a little different, okay? Because I'm sort of used to interactions. And so at the end, think about the questions. Think about your real world experiences, and I guarantee you there's going to be some interesting ones. But for the junior faculty and junior scientists, this is just what I've experienced in my life. And guess what? Not one size fits all. You might find that you have your own way of doing things, but I think there's some general principles that I think you have to keep in mind. And so when Charlie asked me to do this, I said, I just instantly said yes, right?
Thank you. Have a free cup of coffee.
I have a free cup of coffee. I thought it was going to be lunch, so I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah, you told me.
I told you
That's why I
lunch, right?
came.
So I didn't buy any lunch. Okay. Anyway, so let me just start off by. Okay.
So my theatrical aside to the audience is, welcome to my world. I got to deal with these guys every day.
Yeah.
So so this is really taken from an excellent publication that's available. It's free. It's online, and it's by the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. And it's chapter 12 is setting up collaborations. And when I saw, I've got the book in my office, but when I read chapter 12, I said, this was written by a scientist. It was really written by someone who's gone through the same kind of leg hole traps that I've gone through in my career. So I said, why reinvent the wheel? So if you really want a detailed discussion of what we're going to talk about, I would suggest going to the website. You can download it as a PDF, and it's yours. So, so one of the first things you can say is, so what is a collaboration? And things that are highlighted is it's two or more scientists coming together and sort of pooling their energies and resources to conduct a common research project. Okay, that's kind of a simple definition, but I think the most important thing is that researchers have to be collaborators, right? And they have to share a common interest, and I'm going to really hone in on this in a while. They have to have a common interest in a scientific project and for the outcome of the results of that project. It has to be shared, okay? Equal is going to be a term I use a lot, and it's not, you're not buying or selling goods and services. To me, that's not a collaboration. You know, if I have something I can do and you want it done, you know, that's, you know, and there are people who have technical expertise, and you send them something, they may say, here, I'll send you the results back in a week or two. That's not a genuine interest in the project. It's just, here, I can do this for you. And they may even actually charge you for it. So to me, that's not a collaboration.
And they want co-authorship.
Yeah, right. And so, but as Charlie said, if you go to the NIH's mission, really, the research teams of the future are going to be interdisciplinary research teams. And that becomes the critical issue, because not every lab is like some labs that I know that are immense, where they have the entire range and spectrum of expertise that will allow them to do a project that can be from the molecular all the way up to the human. You know, some labs have that expertise. Mine doesn't, sorry. And a lot of people in this group don't have that type of lab. So what happens is you have an area that you're an expert in, and to really sometimes make a really impactful study, you need some other expertise and some other aspect of the research to be able to help you get to an answer. And if you don't have it in your own lab, by definition, you're going to have to set up a collaboration, and that becomes critical. So how do you assess when you need a collaboration, and if you're going to do it, what does it mean? All right. So as I said, do you really need an interaction with someone in order to move your project forward? I can tell you there are certain projects in my lab where it's a self-contained question that I can sort of deal with all the expertise I have. That's great. But there are times when I really need some expertise in order to make it a different type of project or a different type of research question. And so you have to ask the question, is it, and for the junior people here, is it going to move your program forward? First and foremost, that has to be the mode of operation. Is it going to move your project? And I'm going to tell you right now, you got to be as selfish as you can be. Simple as that. Okay? Second, if you're going to do a collaboration, can I afford the time? And so what may happen is, just as you might look for a collaboration, people are easily and often going to contact you for a collaboration. And if they're going to contact you, you have to say, is this going to move my program forward? And secondly, and maybe it does, but guess what? It may be so involved that it basically sucks up all your time. Do you have the time? Does your lab have the time in order to move, in order to collaborate with someone that has that certain need? And so you always have to ask yourself, is it close enough to my central interest? Because there may be some expertise that you have. Someone say, oh, I think I can interact with that person. They'll call you up, and guess what? Yeah, you might be able to address the question they want, but it doesn't really move your program forward. Here's that selfish statement again, okay? And for me, I'll tell you, most of the collaborations I have in the past have been fun, right? Because you're going to spend time with these people. You're going to interact with them. And there's going to be a lot of conversations between PIs, students in the lab. You want that to be fun. I always say, you get 12 hours to the waking day, 8 hours is at work. That's 75% of your life. You better enjoy it. So if you're going to enjoy it, you might as well enjoy it with someone else too. So are your professional and scientific interests compatible? Are you contributing equally? Again, that becomes and I'm going to deal with that later, because it becomes an issue when you're a junior faculty member and a senior, well-known scientist who you might view in awe contacts you. Is it going to be good for you in the end? And I think that's a question you have to ask. You know, are their interests and your interests compatible? Okay? And especially when it's a senior person, are they going to even be available, right? They may swoop in, come in and say, hey, you know, here's a collaboration. It's going to be good for both of us. And then all of a sudden it gets dumped off onto someone in the lab. You never interact with that person again. And the person you interact with may not even have the expertise to communicate with you. So you have to be careful. And so the other thing is, can you rule out potential conflicts, whether they're personal or institutional? I'll give you an example, right? I had someone contact me to collaborate on a project. And I said, and my first instinct was, wow, this will be great. And then I realized that the project intersects slightly with one of my collaborators in the department who I interact with. And even though it's not exactly, there's enough overlap in the Venn diagram that it was going to maybe step on people's toes. And I was pretty excited about it. And then I said, sorry, I can't do it because, you know, I collaborate with so-and-so and it's a potential project. And I've had many of those. And I've had many go the other way, where I contact somebody and they say, oh, I'm working on that with somebody else. You know, even though it might be slightly different. So you got to be careful of those. Okay. So how do you set up a potential collaboration? Whatever you do, never cold call somebody. Don't just pick up the phone and call them. I mean, they have to stew on it a little. You know, they have to think about it. So my suggestion is never do that. Always do it with an email, right? And it's important that, you know, the email really have a sense of the big picture, how they fit in, how you fit in, and it shows that you've done your homework, okay? So if you're gonna then cold call through an email, and I've done this, I'm gonna give you some examples in a second, all right? If you do it through an email, you have to convince them first and foremost that in fact you are who you are, meaning you have the expertise that you claim, and hopefully through publications. And I think it's a sell job. So and so first thing is I said you have to do your homework, because the odds are there are probably many people that have the expertise that you need, and you have to identify which one would be the best. And you might even want to do your homework by contacting some other individuals that you know that person or may have interacted with them and said, is this person fun to collaborate with? So you get sort of multiple perspectives, because once you lock in, you're committed. And let me tell you, the last thing you want to do is back out of a collaboration once you get started. That's no fun. It's no fun for anybody. And so you have to make certain that you both stand to benefit, and you can do that in an email. And you know, you have to always do the standard thing where the whole is indeed greater than the sum of its parts. So let me give you an example of some emails that I've sent out in the past that work, okay? So this was sent out by me to someone who I think the person probably knew me by name. I really have never interacted with them whatsoever, but I knew what they did. The odds are they probably knew what I did. So dear so-and-so, my lab is interested in myosin-5 processivity and has published extensively on the molecular mechanics of myosin motor proteins using single molecule techniques such as laser tweezers and TERP microscopy. I'm doing all the buzzwords to make it sound like I do kind of interesting things, right? We're interested in recreating the intracellular environment and its challenges to the transport of cargo by myosin-5. So this person is a person who is, so inside cells, there's many type of filaments that are cytoskeletal filaments. There are what are called intermediate filaments. There are large filaments like microtubules and myosin thick filaments, and there are smaller filaments like actin filaments. And this person's an expert in intermediate filaments, right? So So we're interested in recreating the intracellular environment and its challenges to the transport of cargo by myosin 5. Therefore, we are set up, I can do it, we're set up to investigate the effect of cytoskeletal roadblocks in myosin 5 plasticity. For example, if an intermediate filament, that's his expertise, crosses over an actin filament, will a myosin 5 molecule be able to walk over this filament, or would it act as a physical roadblock? We'll try the same thing with microtubules. Since you're an expert, I've done my homework, you're an expert in an intermediate filament cytoskeleton, I was wondering if you'd be willing to collaborate on this project and provide Bimentin or any other intermediate filament proteins you think could be used to polymerize in vitro and serve as a road. I would enjoy discussing this possibility with you. Our website introduces our science. If that's of interest, looking forward to your response. Sent me your response and said, we should talk. Now, a phone call happens. So it wasn't a cold call, right? And we started talking about it. And then he basically said, you know, now that I know what the project's all about, I'm collaborating with somebody else on this. So it didn't work. But at least, the conversation was there. But he gave me ideas of who else I might contact. So here's another. So that's through an email that way. Let's let me do one other one. So another way to do it is try to invite someone to come give a seminar. In that way, you have personal interactions with them. And so here's one where I met this person at a meeting. I enjoyed our conversation at such and such. I think the work you're doing definitely complements our structure function studies on myosin. I was wondering if you would be willing to come up and give a seminar here in the department. It would give you a chance to meet with other interested faculty and view firsthand our lab and what our interests are. I'm certain your talk would draw wide interest. Let me know if you're interested and when is time's best for you, spring, summer, fall, regards. This person came up, gave a seminar, just got wowed by all the people here. And we spent a lot of quality time and created a collaboration out of that. I didn't say we were going to collaborate here, but behind my invitation was the idea. I was going to try to convince this person to interact with me. Okay, I won't go through that one. So let's go back to, so that deals with setting up the collaboration. And now this actually becomes the important thing because you both have to be on the same page. And so having some type of collaboration agreement is critical. And it doesn't have to be this legal document by any means, but it does have to be something in writing, which I think is important. Because you can always go back to that and say, you see? And so it should be, I believe it should be an informal agreement, not, like I said, not a legal document. And guess what? You can do it by emails, back and forth. And so what should be in that? Well, what you're going to do, what's the purpose, what's the scope of the work, the expected contribution of each collaborator. And, this is an important one, financial responsibilities, because guess what? Sometimes you can start doing something and someone says, oh yeah, I'll do that. And the next thing you know, it may involve tissue culture or some type of genetic manipulations. Well, there are a lot of reagents and that costs money. And if this is a collaboration out of thin air, there may not be funds that have been earmarked to actually do this. Someone's going to have to pay for it. And so you got to be upfront, right? So I think that's kind of critical. And then so certain milestones, and then expectations about authorship. I'm going to deal with that in a second. And in fact, I give a whole talk about authorship in the ethics course. So what are the ingredients for success? Communication. That is the most important thing. So keep the lines of communication open, and whatever format that may be, whatever works for you, do it. Is it through email? Is it through phone? Is it through Skype? And what I normally do is you can either have exchange of scientists back and forth to the labs, or a lot of times, since your science may be along similar paths, there'll be a common set of meetings you might go to. Make certain that at that meeting you set up a lunch between the two labs and stuff like that. I think it really helps. And And the one thing you don't want to be in any collaboration is the rate limiting step. Meaning, if you're going to do it, do it. Don't have someone having to send you an email. So what's happening? You know, or have you done anything? And you don't want to be radio silent. I mean, that, and there's extreme. I know Jason's probably shaking his head right now. He has a collaborator probably text him every 10 seconds. You know, have you done it yet? Have you done it yet? You know, so I don't think you should be that anal, you know, but lines of communication are critical. Now, so here, dealing with authorship and intellectual property. Intellectual property has now become a bigger issue these days too. But I think authorship is critical, okay? And I think it's critical because it's important for your career. I mean, it's an assessment of what you've done. And so I think you have to start off by having an agreement, especially if it's 2 labs, and we're talking maybe postdocs from each lab, right? So you should have the conversation before you start in terms of authorship. Who's first, who's last, who's middle? Those are all critical concerns. And let me tell you, when it doesn't work, it doesn't work, okay? And one party loses interest halfway through, you've wasted your time, all right? That to me, time is of the essence. And so, so if all of a sudden one party sort of goes radio silent, that's not a good thing. You know, you can have problems with family issues. I understand that. You know, honest disagreement, you know, in authorship, I could see that being an issue, but that's, you know, when it becomes sticky, but when one or both parties behaves badly, and I've seen this, where collaborators badmouth another collaborator at a meeting and stuff like that. You don't want to go there. Your scientific family, your scientific community is extremely small. People are going to be always, a lot of times, your reviewers. You know, you want them to be your champions. You don't want them to be your enemies in any way, shape, or form. You don't want any noise in this system of science. So let me give you an example of when it went bad. So let me give you a backstory here, and then we're going to be done in a few seconds here. Okay, let me give you a backstory. So here's a collaboration that was set up between my lab and another lab, and I'm not going to mention any names. I'm just going to say that this other lab is extremely prominent, and postdoc in the other lab created some reagent. Postdoc in my lab did some experiments on it. We had we did some beautiful work, and we had agreed that the postdoc in the other lab was going to be the first author. My postdoc was going to be co-first author, but second. And then forget about the back end. You know, it was, I forgot who was going to be the senior author. It didn't matter to me. To me, what mattered most was my postdoc's career. Okay, so we did this work, and we sent it to Science. Science came back and said, we love it, but we know the Warshaw lab has the capacity to do this certain type of measurement, and we'd like them, because they've kind of reported on it, and they're using a measurement that's similar but not as state-of-the-art, we'd like them to actually do that. And but the way they asked it, what we had to do was not going to be trivial. And we said, if Science says come back, we're just going to do it, right? So it took us about 6 months to collect the new data. We came back to Science and said, sure, we can wait the 6 months. And so now we write the paper, and what's happened is this new approach that we've done has now sort of taken over the paper role. Focus has changed. We rewrite the whole paper for Science, I send it back, and I flip the first authors. And they didn't want to have any part of it. And so we were having these conversations, and so I was sending emails back and forth. So here's an example. so-and-so, I haven't heard from you over after my last 2 emails. We need to discuss some issues, finish up the paper and move on. Please contact me ASAP. And they didn't. Finally, I called them and I said, this is what I'd like to do. I mean, I think we need to swap the authors. The paper has changed so substantially that it highlights our work more than your postdoc's work at this point in time. And it's a science paper. And they said, no, it's got to be our postdoc first. And then the conversation, this is not a phone call conversation, the conversation started turning to the fact where they said, we believe our postdoc's work is more important than your postdoc's work. So I couldn't believe the conversation we were having. And so what I did is I said, so-and-so, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm hanging up the phone. Because if I don't hang up now, there are going to be a lot of 4-letter words that are just going to come out of my mouth, and I don't think I want to go there. I hung up the phone. And then I wrote this email right after. Okay? So bear with me. After our last phone conversation, I've given our dilemma some serious consideration. First of all, the so-and-so and Warshaw Labs collaboration is scientifically outstanding, and we should be proud of the work of our junior scientists have accomplished. I feel strongly that we should not even attempt to compare the importance of my versus your postdoc's work. Therefore, at this point, I really see only one solution to the problem outlined below. My hope is that you will see my logic and agree to the solution so we can proceed quickly. I propose that we abandon our attempt at publishing a revised manuscript in Science. I can't believe I'm saying that. But rather seek publication of the original manuscript elsewhere, right? In fact, I propose such and such a journal as the alternative. The original manuscript we sent to Science can stand on its own. I feel strongly that this paper with minor editing would be a strong addition to the literature. In addition, your postdoc should be co-first author with my postdoc with your postdoc listed first, which was the original way. This manuscript should be turned around rapidly since there's no new data and that need to be added. And I would be most happy to do the submission to make sure there are no delays because I couldn't trust these people. They wouldn't even answer my emails. I said, I'll take the burden, right? I feel so strongly. I also feel so strongly that the blank curves for the blank be a separate paper with our, I changed today. I figuring I give you too much information you can figure out. Be a separate paper with our postdocs again as co-first author. Now this time with my postdoc listed first. This paper would not be submitted until the first paper is accepted or in revision. I believe this is the only viable solution, with any other being unacceptable to both my postdoc and myself, and to me more as his mentor. In no way should this color our collaboration. I think that both our lab's science is first rate, and I look forward to more in the future. Not. And the funny thing is, I was just at a meeting 2 weeks ago with the same people, and the person came up to me and said, you know, I presented some stuff, they presented stuff, says, why aren't we collaborating? I mean, this is an opportunity. I said, yeah, we should. Nah. I'm sorry, I won't collaborate with them anymore. And it's kind of funny. I'm cutting my nose off to spite myself because the science would be really great, but I just can't do it. In the end, we should talk so I can elaborate if necessary, but I hope we can move swiftly so we can get the science out in the public domain where it needs to be for both our postdocs' career. I look forward to your reply. I'm in town anytime this week. They agreed to it. Both papers are now in the literature. But that's an example of a collaboration gone bad. And it only became an issue because we didn't have an agreement on the first hand in terms of authorship. And we didn't revisit it after the fact either. When it came back from Science, I should have made that, set of discussions, and we wouldn't have had the issue
before you started the work.
Yes, exactly. So let me finish up. So this is for the junior people. So here's where it gets challenging, okay? So as I just said, collaborating with a well-known senior investigator, this is a potential issue, may undervalue your work for tenure. So you have to be careful. Even if you're first author, people say, well, it really came out of the so-and-so lab, not yours, right? Here's another one. Collaborating with your postdoctoral mentor is not recommended because people won't know what is yours, okay? Again, the larger the collaborator's lab, the more complex the collaboration, the more it gets tricky in terms of authorship issues and stuff like that. So I think smaller projects with smaller labs, I think might be better. This is another important one. If your expertise is in demand, what will happen is you may get inundated with people coming to you, say, hey, could you do such and such for us? It'll be a collaboration. And I think what happens is, as scientists, especially junior scientists, you don't know how to say no, so you would prefer saying yes, and you think, oh, it'll be another publication. But I think what will happen is, and it may even come from your own department, people walk down the hallway, it's going to potentially dilute your effort. Always have your primary project as first and foremost. Be selfish. And so learn how to say no gracefully. And I say this to my junior faculty, use me as the fall person. And so, and I've done that. And Jason's left, and he left because his student's giving a talk right now. It overlaps. But Jason has used that many a time where someone's come and say, hey, could you do such and such? And he now knows, he said, yeah, I think I'd like to, but I should just check with my chair because of the amount of effort I'm already. And guess what? I write a little email saying, Jason came to me, suggested such and such. And I suggested that for his career that he actually not do that. Please blame me. I'm looking out for him. Okay, so use your chair as a way to say no. And I think that's where I'm at. 20 minutes, sort of, right? Yeah. Little. Sorry.
Questions?
I think we were joking in the beginning about what is, so you sort of glossed over the saying you don't want to go there, but dissolving collaborations. What are your sort of recommendations for, even before they go bad, as you see them going bad, the sort of strategic way to dissolve them? You failed to say no.
Yeah. So I'll be honest with you. At least in my career, more often than not, they've been successful. This is one that really. The interesting thing is, I've got several papers with these people, and they're excellent papers. And maybe the way things went in the past didn't give me any. I wasn't discouraged about going forward, and then we got caught in this authorship issue. I haven't, and so I don't have any choice words for how to dissolve a collaboration. I think if you do your homework on the front end, it probably won't be an issue.
I think I fall into I didn't do your suggestions as a junior investigator when I was a junior investigator, and these collaborations are still in existence now that I'm not a junior investigator anymore, and some of them need to go. And the easiest way is to become the non-communicative one and let them drop you. But I was wondering if you guys too had.
So my suggestion is something my mother told me many years ago. Honesty is the best policy. And if really it's not moving your program forward, and you need effort and stuff like that, you can easily just state that. It's at a point where we're moving on to other things and stuff like that, and I don't have the effort to give it.
There's lots of plausible deniability that one could think of. Now it's contextual with each one, because it's some relationship that you built up over the years. But I agree with David that honesty is the best policy, and just say, I'm going to think of a bunch of reasons. I'm totally overwhelmed. In your case, I'm getting a new chair. Things are.
Use that one.
Yeah. Things aren't going so well. I mean, we could all say this one. Well, things aren't going ideally. I need to refocus my efforts on X, Y, and Z, or I see my lab going in a different direction, or whatever. Or in my case, I just left the whole bloody institution and left it all behind me. I mean, there's a reason I'm here. And half of the reason was I was offered something great. The other half, I had to get out of Denver really bad because I was in some really malignant collaborations. And it was a power differential that was going to make it really difficult. And it was also a situation where we had rolling contracts.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest problem I was having was with the chairman of a department. So you can see where that could get kind of difficult. So, yeah, I think passive-aggressive behavior sometimes, particularly when you're dealing with a collaborator who's little.
I just had an example now that I think about it that happened this year. And it was an example where I got into a collaboration, and I've interacted with this person because they have provided reagents, and it's been just a really useful collaboration. And then all of a sudden, that person's student was going to actually write the papers. And all of a sudden, I realized that because of maybe English not being a first language and other issues, and the lack of depth of my collaborators' understanding of the system, that the paper that happened, that I got as a first draft, now I have my students and myself on there, I would be embarrassed for it being in the public domain. And so next thing I know, I'm rewriting this whole thing. And that wasn't a part of the agreement. I didn't want to go there, right? And so, and then I realized that I now have 2 other collaborations and papers coming down the line. And it's like, it's going to be tough, but I had a heart-to-heart with this person. I said, if I wasn't collaborating with you, I can tell you that the quality of this manuscript would not, it would just get rejected flat out. And it might even be an embarrassment to you. I said, what would have happened if I wasn't here? What would you have done? And so the answer was, well, I would give it to a scientific writer, And so I got to the point where I almost terminated. We had a conversation. I said, I think I've got to stop collaborating and stuff like that. Well, guess what happens? Comes back and he's developed this other new reagent that nobody has. And guess what? I just got stuck back into it again. So, but for me, I must admit, it's a marriage of convenience, and I have to. So it's not fun. It's not fun when it gets to the writing stage. It's fun collecting the data and doing everything up to that point. And I guess I'm far enough in my career, I can handle it a little better. But God forbid if it was a junior faculty that got into the same situation that I would have been in. That would have been a time crunch that would have been horrible.
Let me mention an example where we can do things, do 2 things for your lab. Whereas early on here, I had a collaboration with somebody in England. And he came to Gordon Conference, came to visit me. Very prominent, Nick Stan, really good, super guy. I already knew he was super. And he wanted to do a sabbatical here. And I realized, well, this would be great. We had, in about 3 years, we had 2 nature papers and 2 science papers. And he spent several summers here for his family. But the event itself was a great collaboration. I already knew he would have this. I met him a number of times. Knew the quality of the work. But but the other thing that happened was, I go to Leicester, England. I got one of my first postdocs from there because I was going there and talking to people, and there are a lot of people in Europe who get the right connection that will want to come here as a postdoc. And so that was sort of like networking, but I wasn't, a lot of English people will spend, Tom's not here, but want to come to the United States, even with Trump, believe it or not. And so it was 2 things: a great collaboration, a person I really liked a lot, very smart. A lot of great papers. Plus, I also started a network of people to come here. John Quayle was the first guy. So you can, if you do it right, you can also have a conduit for new people for your lab that are well trained too. It's an important point. But he wrote really well too. So he went to Oxford, Cambridge.
Yeah. So that's examples of collaborations that are, and I can give you some in my case too, that are just wonderful. But there's also some of the worst. That's why I like the beginning of The Tale of Two Cities, because I think it captures it really well.
Yeah, I would say, but for the most part, they've been virtually all positive. You know, I can count on half of one hand, you know, that are bad, but I have multiple hands in terms of the other collaborations I've had that have been positive.
Problem is, if you're empathic, those couple drive you crazy. And you know, what's your mental health work? So I think one of the things David said that I really violently agree with is it's got to be fun. And if it isn't, I don't do it. Because those couples have been so horrible. I just never want to I'm traumatized, you know, PTSD kind of thing.
All the ones I've had with people I really like and are still really good friends. Otherwise, I don't want to bother.
You don't like them.
No. Or if you are suspicious of the quality of their work too.
The other thing I've done, and I've been pretty upfront about it, is I check references. I don't get involved with somebody that I, you know, particularly when out of the blue, I don't get involved until I do a little Dun & Bradstreet on them. Because even a suggestion there might be something hinky going on, and I walk, because I just don't want that anymore.
I've had some collaborations where I've had people propose a collaboration, and the interesting thing is someone contacted me and I said, "Oh, you know, that's interesting." We had a Skype, you know, conversation. I said, "Let's pursue it. Let's just go the next step." And the next step came back and says, "Oh, this would be great. So let's write a grant together." We haven't even started the collaboration. So you just do, you know, reporter, person doesn't have any funding, hasn't had funding for a while, you know, so all of a sudden they're seeing you as a conduit, you know, to grant support. So, sorry, no.
So yeah, I mean, these are, in the world of team science, because this is going to be more and more, not less and less. And you need to develop a strategy of how you're going to do that, or you'll get lost. And you know, some of these large labs. No, I'm not talking about him so much, but I mean, if you think of some of these labs that had 50 members in the lab, and some of the really big ones. Yeah, again, it's the power differential. Doesn't look good. Outcome may not be great.
Yeah, some of the labs, I mean, mine is relatively large for a year, but compared to what you're talking about, isn't it?
It's tiny.
Many postdocs have numbers, not even names. Like labs.
A friend of mine, I think we had about 50 postdocs from all over the world in his lab. And he would meet with them, you know, 1 or 2 days a month as he passed through town on his way in and out of town. That's probably not that. That's one where it'd be very difficult.
Just remember, I mean, just the most important thing is, does it move your program forward in a meaningful manner? I mean, that is really critical. Just keep asking yourself that question.
There's 5 questions you asked, David. What's in it for me?
Just be selfish. But you're doing it for a good reason. It's not, you know.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple to look at the papers. If they think they're low quality, then why don't? Would have been retracted.
Yep. Okay.
Other questions? But there's some parallels to this in what we've taught in the mentoring about aligning. It's so important with a protege, somebody you're mentoring, or collaboration, is to align expectations and have some sort of contract compact at the beginning so that we know who's on first, who's on second, and what each party's doing. And it's going to save you a lot of headache.
I could just say in one sentence or two, I know of an example of 2 parties here at this institution that collaborated and then couldn't come to an agreement on the authorship issues. Great science. And it almost, I can't remember, it may have even gone to the dean's office to try to rectify it. I mean, this is in-house. Give me a break.
I'm not surprised. It happens in all aspects of human endeavors. Why should it happen here?
I thought we were family, but, it's still, it was amazing to me.
Really, I didn't know you were my brother. Can I get a loan? Do you have a car I can use? All right. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Good job.
Yeah, right.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Next time I want lunch.
Next time I'll get you.
What's that?
Policy as long as I've been here.
I like to avoid conflicts. I'm sort of one that
Yeah, well, that's what
That's why.
That's what it says.
Not a lot of
That's why
right things
bad
to do.
collaborators here. It says problems with bad collaborators here.
Because you can't avoid it.
And you know the collaborator is very persistent.
Well, I can tell you how to get rid of it.
And I